The opening scene introduces Sudeep, a wealthy and influential industrialist who is seen flawlessly shooting a firearm in a training center, leaving everyone impressed. His business partner and friend, Aditya, informs him of an important business meeting that they have to attend in a few minutes, but Sudeep seems oblivious to it, ignoring Aditya's advice to be more responsible since their client is hard to please. Instead, Sudeep approaches a young woman on the other side of the field, seductively teaching her how to fire a shot. Meanwhile, Bindu, a young miniature artist, builds a tiny hut but is dissatisfied with her work. When the power goes out, she moves her setup by the side of the window and tries to use moonlight to finish the sculpture. Nani, Bindu's neighbor who has been in love with her for the past 2 years, notices her struggling and builds a makeshift light bulb using torchlight and aluminum foil to help her complete the sculpture. Despite his efforts, Bindu closes her window and goes to sleep without even thanking him. Nani's friend criticizes Bindu for being rude, but Nani, still smitten with her, defends her actions, claiming that she closed the window to help him since he would have waited for her all night otherwise. The next day, Sudeep throws an exclusive party to celebrate his company's 3rd anniversary. One of his clients, who has been difficult to deal with, surprises him with a gift of a file. Aditya, who is with Sudeep, wonders how the client agreed to sign the papers. Aditya's surprise turns to shock when he realizes that the client's wife is the woman whom Sudeep had seduced at the firearm training center, and Sudeep had used her to close the deal with the client. After the successful deal, Sudeep and his business partners head to a bar to celebrate. As they talk, they reveal that Sudeep's wealth comes from his late wife, whom he had killed a few years ago. He had taken over her company and has been running it as his own. Meanwhile, Bindu, who is a miniature artist and also runs an NGO called Project 551, is at her office preparing to buy books for underprivileged children. However, the organization is low on funding. Someone suggests that Bindu arrange a meeting with Sudeep as his company is looking to support a non-profit organization. Bindu meets Sudeep in his office, where he is instantly attracted to her beauty. Despite Bindu explaining the charitable deeds of her organization, Sudeep is too distracted checking her out. At the end of the meeting, Sudeep surprises Bindu by handing her a check of 15 lakh rupees to support her cause. However, Bindu is unaware of his true intentions. A few days after the program, they distributed books and stationery to underprivileged students in their neighborhood. Sudeep asked Bindu to join him for lunch at a fancy restaurant. When they were ready to order, Bindu received a text from Nani complimenting her looks. She looked around and saw Nani watching her from the other side of the restaurant. She couldn't take her eyes off him and ignored Sudeep entirely. This hurt Sudeep's ego. After the meal, Sudeep drove her home, but she stopped him midway, saying she had to shop for groceries. Sudeep followed her and saw that she was together with Nani. He became enraged with anger and jealousy and made it his mission to separate Bindu and Nani. One night, Bindu lost track of time and worked late. When it was time for her to return home, she was too scared to walk alone, so she sent Nani a blank text, knowing that he would take it as a sign and come to her. He got the text and rushed to her. The two walked home in silence. However, after Bindu walked inside, a white van drove by, and the people inside kidnapped Nani. They were thugs appointed by Sudeep to get rid of Nani from Bindu's life. They took him to an abandoned house and beat him to a pulp. Sudeep also arrived there and hit him repeatedly. When Nani found out that Sudeep was hitting him for Bindu, he claimed that anyone who tried to harm Bindu would die at his hands. This angered Sudeep even more, so he beat Nani to death. Right after, Bindu called Nani to tell him that she loved him, but it was too late. A while later, Nani's corpse glowed blue and the light transferred from his body to a fly's egg nearby. In the morning, a body is discovered in the middle of the road and the corrupt police declare it an accident. Bindu witnesses the corpse being taken away in an ambulance and is devastated. 10 days later, an egg that was struck by a strange light hatches and gives birth to a baby fly. Unbeknownst to Bindu, the fly is actually Nani reborn as an animal to take revenge on his killer. At first, Nani doesn't remember his past life and tries to fly away, but his wings are stuck to his body. He almost dies when he is trapped in flowing water, but he eventually frees his wings and soars into the air. As Nani explores his new life, He is amazed by the floating bubbles and children running around. He also starts to play with the bubbles, popping them as they float. However, after getting stuck on a cricket ball, Nenny lands on a half-eaten apple and is chased by a bird. Finally, he enters a house where a human accidentally drowns him in a mug full of water. The fly notices that the man holding the glass is none other than his killer. When he gets a look at his face, the fly suddenly remembers his past life. Enraged by the revelation, he flies out of the drink and attacks his killer. However, he soon realizes that he is no longer human and can barely cause any harm. With a swat of his hand, Sudeep sends Nenny flying to the ground. Suddenly, Nenny remembers Bindu and rushes to her house. When he finally sees her, he is overwhelmed with emotions. However, he is only a tiny fly, and Bindu doesn't acknowledge him. She talks to her sister-in-law about Nenny and claims that she misses him dearly. Hearing this, the fly is determined to get her attention. In the afternoon, Bindu is in her office when Sudeep pays her a visit to offer his condolences for Nenny's death. He tries to get closer to her, but a fly enters his ear, prompting Bindu to protect herself and make Sudeep leave. In the next scene, Sudeep enters a wooden steam bath where his limbs are bound, and the fly once again enters his ear, causing him to nearly injure himself on a shower handle in an attempt to kill it. He runs outside naked, embarrassing himself in front of his business partners and clients. Later, Sudeep offers Bindu to accompany him to Delhi for the betterment of their organization, and they plan to leave the following day. However, the fly prevents Sudeep from sleeping peacefully at night, forcing him to wrap himself in a sheet to catch some rest. Bindu calls him the next morning, informing him that they have to board their flight in half an hour. As Sudeep rushes to the airport, the fly causes chaos by bothering a traffic police officer and attacking Sudeep's eye, causing him to get into an accident. The fly even writes, "I will kill you" on the car's glass with dust as Sudeep remains trapped in the car seat. After being saved, the man becomes paranoid that the fly will come back for him. He carries fly spray with him at all times to protect himself, causing people to think he is insane. Despite this, Sudeep stays determined. Bindu comes to visit him, which angers the fly and causes it to attack Sudeep again. Bindu sprays the fly with repellent, causing it to fall out the window and land on a bush. The fly is about to die from the toxin on its body when a water sprinkler turns on and washes it off. Sudeep visits an entomologist to ask if flies can take revenge, but the doctor advises him to take a rest and believes he is being delusional. Sudeep still does not believe anyone and goes to the dumping ground where his car was wrecked. There he meets a strange man who tells him his wealth is about to burn. Sudeep ignores him and looks around the wreckage, finding a shredded glass that says "kill." He is now certain the fly was trying to kill him. The next day, Nenny sees Bindu crying over his death and uses her teardrops to write her a message. Bindu is shocked to see the writing and realizes it is from Nenny. The fly communicates that Sudeep killed him to get closer to Bindu, which shocks her. She promises to help the fly take revenge on Sudeep by creating tiny glasses to protect him from fly-repellent sprays using her miniature art skills. Sudeep makes his bodyguards look for the fly, but they are unsuccessful. He also realizes that the repellents do not work on his enemy and tries various ways to kill it, but nothing works. Nenny lights his bed on fire, makes him drink fly bait, and never lets him sleep at night, but he still needs to do something extraordinary to kill the fly. Nenny decides to fill a working cannon display with gunpowder and light it at the right time to kill Sudeep. Bindu fills a tiny bucket of gunpowder for Nenny, which he drops into the cannon repeatedly until it is completely filled. However, when a man puts tissue paper into the cannon's muzzle, the plan fails. On the next day, Sudeep installs insect-proof glasses and scanners in his house to keep the flies out. This causes Bindu to personally visit Sudeep's house to let Nenny in. When Sudeep tries to touch Bindu inappropriately, Nenny uses its claws to make him retreat. The next day, Sudeep has an important meeting with investors to fund his upcoming project. However, due to lack of sleep and fear of flies, he starts talking about fly repellent sprays in the middle of the presentation. Moreover, Nenny lands on an investor's head, causing Sudeep to dump a pot on him. As a result, the investors refuse to fund the project, leading Sudeep's company to go into debt. To make matters worse, income tax officers are informed about Sudeep's hidden black money in the office. He tries to move the money, but due to the fly, it burns to ashes, leaving him almost penniless. Sudeep remembers the man he met at the dumping site who warned him that his wealth would burn soon. He tracks down the man, Tantra, an expert in black magic, who helps him discover that the fly is Nani, reborn to take revenge. Sudeep and Tantra perform a ritual to create two evil birds to catch Nani, but the fly kills both of them. The glass doors lock and smoke fills the house, trapping Sudeep and Tantra. Luckily, they are later rescued by Aditya. Sudeep reviewed CCTV footage and discovered that Bindu was responsible for letting the fly into their house. Now that he knows their secret, he decides to use her to kill the fly. Sudeep takes Bindu hostage and calls for Nani to come out. To save Bindu, Nani surrenders and appears before Sudeep. During the ensuing fight, Bindu hides away while the fly distracts Sudeep. Fly tries to attack the Sudeep with a needle, but the Sudeep manages to trap him using a magnet. Sudeep then finds Bindu hiding in a corner and holds her hostage again. He proceeds to cut off the fly's wings while mocking them. Suddenly, Nani notices that the paper ball blocking the cannon has fallen out, which means that it can fire again. The fly coats himself with gunpowder and jumps into the loaded cannon. The projectile passes through Sudeep, killing him and causing an explosion that burns down his house. In the last scene, Bindu drives to work and a man catcalls her. Nani, who has been reborn as a fly again, attacks the man with a needle and announces his return. Please subscribe to see more content like this, and leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.